Ramos, Councilmember Jimmy Van Bramer, Councilmember-elect Eric Bottcher, the Executive Director of the LGBT Center, Glenda Testone, and please welcome our 57th Governor, Governor Kathy Hochul.
Thank you all for being with us this morning. We love welcoming our community back to the center. We're now open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. with a dedicated staff ready to support. Feels good. This week is Trans Awareness Week, so it is especially wonderful to help support our state take the steps necessary to affirm the LGBTQ community during this time, particularly transgender, gender expansive, and non-binary New Yorkers. It's a pleasure to be joined for this event by some longtime colleagues and fellow community advocates, including Assemblymember Deborah Glick, our Assembly member. Thank you. City Council Member Jimmy Van Bramer. Council Member-elect Tiffany, Council Member-elect Eric Bottcher. Where are you, Eric? There you are. Council Member-elect Chi Osei. Council Member-elect Tiffany Caban. And Council Member-elect Lynn Schulman. As well as Melissa Scalars, T.S. Candy, woo! From the Black Trans Nation, Sean Coleman from Destination Tomorrow, and Tanya Walker. Where's Tanya? I don't see Tanya, but we all love her. She's from Equality New York. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to all the advocates who helped get these bills across the finish line. The Center is committed to advocating for the advancement of legislation and policies in New York that support community needs. The bills that the governor will sign into law today will help ensure that businesses and municipalities respect gender identities and also help to decriminalize and destigmatize survivors of human trafficking. Thank you, Governor Hochul, for helping to champion these efforts. We look forward to building on these victories to make further progress for all LGBTQ people in New York alongside the governor and our state legislatures, and with the support of the LGBTQ and allied organizations that make up this great community a number of us are part of, as well as the statewide advocacy initiative, Rise Out, as well as thousands of individual community members and advocates across New York State. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to be able to introduce our Governor, Kathy Hochul. There is a lot that I could say about Governor Hochul and her support of the LGBT community. I will just say in brief, this is not the first time the governor has been to the center. We've all seen her many times at these events in and around the center, in and around the city and the state. And so it is truly my honor to be able to welcome for the first time Governor Kathy Hochul. Congratulations.
You all got so quiet. This is a celebration, need I remind you. We know how to celebrate here in New York. First of all, happy Transgender Awareness Week. Let's get that out there. To celebrate everyone and to know that this is the epicenter of all causes great and good. Everything worth fighting for starts in the state of New York, and we're going to continue the journey, never rest on our laurels, but I believe that I know this is a huge point of pride for all of us, that New York City, Stonewall, is truly known globally as the epicenter of the LGBTQ movement, and that is something I personally am very proud of as well. Glenda, I have been here many times, and I walk through the doors here, and I just feel this sense of people's belonging. People feel that this is a place they can be respected and valued, feelings that they may not have when they're sometimes in their homes or in their schools and their place of work. And that pains me as the leader of this state, but to know that there's an oasis they can come to feel those values that all of us crave, respect and dignity. I thank you for your leadership here. I know it's a tough time through this pandemic, but you never gave up. And you continued fighting for the members of this community, and I know they appreciate it, as do I. So, Glenda Testone, thank you for being the executive director here. I do want to acknowledge some of the amazing elected officials we have here and to thank them for also never giving up the fight. And sometimes it feels the headwinds are against you and you just feel like, how long is this going to take? Some of these ideas have been percolating for such a long time. I think about the fight for gender. Why would that have taken literally a decade or more? Brad Hoylman, you lived and breathed this. I know Deborah Glick was there fighting the good fight. You just never, ever gave up, and so many other people that came forward. I want to thank them, Senator Hoylman, Assemblymember Dick Godfrey, a great fighter who's one of the sponsors of the bill today, Jessica Gonzalez-Rojas, Assemblymember Jessica Ramos, our state senator, Deborah Glick, whose district we're in. Thank you very much. Also, I so look forward to working with all the council members elects who are here, as well as our Jimmy Van Bramer is here as well. All of you are going to create a very dynamic city council. I want to tell you, I am so excited about the fact that it is the most diverse city council in the history of the city. There are finally more women as well. I was part of an effort to see if we could go from having 11 women in the city council to possibly even 21. How audacious was that? And we now have 31. So I think this is going to be a whole new era of leadership. And I look forward to working with the new mayor. And I will repeat this again because it is a headline worth repeating, that the era of conflict is over, that a new era of collaboration has begun. The second I have a chance to welcome new Mayor Eric Adams into his position to work with the City Council, that is my pledge to all of you. The fighting between Albany and New York will stop, and instead we'll be starting to fight for the people of the state of New York. It's that simple. Alyssa Crespo, also the Executive Director of the New Pride Agenda, I want to thank you for your leadership. We have a number of bills to talk about here today, and I'm really excited. And I do want to talk about the leaders as well. I will look like a real hero when I pick up a pen in my hand and say, I'm going to sign this. That's the easy part of the job. The hard part is coming up with the idea, seeing an injustice that needs to be rectified, feeling so passionately about it that you're going to take an idea, convert it into a piece of legislation, build support for it, have hearings, get it through the Assembly, get it to the Senate, and get it over the finish line. I don't take for granted how much work is involved with that. And so that brings us here today to talk about two very special bills, but also just why we need these bills in the first place. I mean, that's what we need to get to. I mean, you look at why are we still talking about these injustices? And there are leaders of the LGBTQ community who, in addition to our elected leaders, people from the community, who have always been fighting these fights, people that care so passionately that whatever they've had to deal with their own life, they won't just internalize that and deal with it themselves. They'll say, I know there's a problem out there and I want to help solve it for others. Activists like Lorena Borjas, a transgender immigrant activist we recently lost to COVID at the age of 59, someone who had made a profound difference at the front of so many transgender battles in Queens and throughout New York. And she started a mission to protect sex workers living with AIDS. She helped start a home for transgender women in her apartment. So many people like her, and think about Cecilia Gentili. I want to thank you for all your work that you've done. The kind of person who says you get into trouble at 3 in the morning, you need a doctor, need a lawyer, need housing, you call me and I'll be there for you. I love that sense of commitment to others, and I want to thank to continue the legacy of individuals like these, to continue fighting for our transgender community. Trans New Yorkers should not have any fear in their hearts, but that is not the world we live in today. The violence, the discrimination, the pain caused to these individuals for simply being who they are or walking down the street. And yes, we have eradicated some of the challenges, the walking while trans ban. You now can walk while trans. How about that? But the fact that we had to overcome hurdles to say you can walk while trans in the state of New York is a little bit maddening, but we got it done. Thank you, Brad Holman and others who fought for this. But there's still challenges. And we've been at the forefront of many of the victories. It's been a long, long journey, but also where are we here today? What are we talking about today? We're here talking about an issue simply that should be in the what I would call a no-brainer category, but it's not, so we're going to change this. The first bill gives utility customers the right to be addressed and acknowledged by their chosen names and by the correct pronouns. Now, that should not be a radical statement, but apparently it is, that we have to actually pass a law to change that. With more than 800,000 New Yorkers, LGBTQ, and 80,000 who are transgender, this is what we just call common sense legislation that is long overdue. And so only 30% of transgender individuals, they actually change their name because the process is so excruciating. I knew this back when I was a county clerk. What is a county clerk? I was in charge of the legal records and records for real estate way back in my past life a long time ago. I was simply asked by my friends in the LGBTQ community, can we have the ability to identify as we choose? I said yes. Why not? What is the challenge here? This has not been the case statewide for our utilities and others. I want to make sure that they know that these individuals have these rights. So start and reduce the barriers. No longer we need a court order to change your name. There's just too many obstacles. And for a transgender individual being misgendered, it's traumatic. It's truly dramatic. It's stressful. To be dead named. I mean, these are people with feelings and individuals who just deserve more than that. And to know that this is going on and causing them anguish, therefore it causes me anguish. This is how I feel so deeply and passionately about the people of this state. So this legislation is necessary to streamline the process for utility corporations to respect a customer's gender identities. It will also prevent the risk of individuals being found by an abusive family member or partner and reduce the risk of harassment in housing. So this is really important. I want to thank our leaders on this bill. I want to thank Senator Hoyman and Member of Assembly Jessica Gonzalez-Rojas for having the vision to see a problem, knowing how to correct it, and that's why we're here today. Let's give them both a round of applause. Another bill that needs to be addressed is known as the START Act, and our sponsors are Member of Assembly Richard Gottfried. We've been you have a lot of my pens these days. I was going to tell you, you've been a lot of your and Senator Jessica Ramos. And this is the Survivors of Trafficking Attaining Relief Together. It stands for START. And this builds on who I mentioned earlier, Lorena Borjas' legacy, by strengthening the protections for victims of sex trafficking, labor trafficking, compelling prostitution, and trafficking in persons who are convicted of a range of offenses as a result of that trafficking. It allows judges to clear convictions of all offenses resulting from being trafficked, making the bill more equitable and accessible for survivors. Again, these are the victims. These are the people who are trafficked. There is a sadly robust industry out there where people have no choice. They're subjugated into this role as a matter of survival, either personal survival or economic survival. Therefore, they are victims and they need to be protected. The START Act enables judges to examine the facts related to their individual's victimization and make an individual decision as to eligibility. It also codifies that the relief is based on the merits rather than rehabilitation, acknowledging the person never should have been convicted in the first place. Also provides increased protection for immigrant survivors who are far more vulnerable to trafficking. You think about what happens when the traffickers bring individuals places like Buffalo, where I was born, the trafficking coming in from Toronto, Chinese women, you're told you can either work in 5 years at a nail salon to pay your passage or 1 year in sex trafficking. What kind of choice for that is for any human being? What kind of choice? That is going on in our state today and all over this country. So we ensure that the court documents filed by survivors are confidential to protect their safety and dignity. It eases the criminal record for relief process, which can be traumatizing. And this is a critical step forward for individuals who've been subjected to this, who are victimized, for them to have a record that allows them to reemerge into society. get a job without having a record, getting housing, getting education without this stigma, without this record following them. This is just a recognition of people who have been victimized. So these are just two of the bills that we're working on. I also believe there's so much more we can do. I have been to supportive housing for senior members of the LGBTQ community. When I walk in those rooms and I see that there's this sense of relief, that especially older members of the community who don't have children and grandchildren who are going to be checking in on them and looking out for them, people like my Uncle Kevin, who ended up dying alone during COVID, didn't have enough family checking in on him. That is the story of far too many New Yorkers. It is a painful experience, and we can do so much more to lift them up and know that especially our older citizens, the life that they started, being openly gay in this state when they were younger, could be brutal. It could be an experience where you're rejected by your family. Sometimes you're rejected by your church, your community, and they're the ones that we owe so much more to. So I will continue finding ways to partner with local organizations to bring supportive housing, housing that'll give them wraparound services, housing that'll make them feel valued and loved as they enter the older years of their lives. Also, we just announced construction of $22 million to supporting housing development in central Harlem. And there's no part of our city and our state that does not need housing like this. This is the bold agenda that I'll be pushing forward to make sure that we recognize needs, whether it's fixing problems with legislation or finding ways that we can drive economic development and housing to the people who truly need it. That is my commitment. That is how I can use the role as your governor to help lift up everyone and let them know they're valued, that this is a place where there's no tolerance for hate, that I will stand up against any act of discrimination, and particularly against the trans community, because the murder rate for trans women is appalling, it's shocking, and it has to stop. And that is also my commitment as we work together to make a safer community for everyone. As we come out of this pandemic, we have many challenges. But I look at these challenges as opportunities to lift people up and to do better than we even had before. And that is on all of our shoulders as members of this community, our elected community, our partners, and also everyone, that we have an opportunity to bring back New York City, New York State, and become the envy of the rest of the nation. We value individuals, we value people, and we show love, respect, and dignity to all. It's that simple, and I know we can do this. So thank you for being here today. Thank you to our legislative leaders for making this happen.
Please welcome one of the stars of Pose, Dominique Jackson.